Hello, and welcome to Integrated Transport Research Lab for this year's Symposium on Integrated Transport. My name is Robin Vetter. I work with communications here, and I would like to start with some practical information. First off, toilets, bathrooms, whatever you want to call them, downstairs, so you have to go through the staircase down. It makes some noise, the staircase that is, not the toilets, so please be careful. We are also live streaming to Facebook. You need to be aware that if you ask any questions, we encourage that, but it may be broadcast on Facebook. Today we have some exciting stuff going on. We will have a panel discussion here on what integrated transport is and how to do research on it. We will also have some fika. And we will also hear from a few projects going on here at ITRL. And then we will run a concept that we are trying out for the first time called conversations, where you will be engaging in conversations about our research. And you will be led in that by Rami back there later on, so have no fear. And after that, we will do what we're all maybe really here for, the demonstrations, the mingling, and the barbecue. But we'll see about that. First off, though, we're going to hear from Pernestål Brenden, who is the head of ITRL, and she will talk to us about why we should work integrated. So, Anna, welcome.
Okay, thank you. Great, wow. So nice to see so many people here today. Very much welcome to all of you. I'm looking forward to this exciting afternoon together with you. Yes, why we should work integrated, because we are at Integrated Transport Research Lab. But we live in a very exciting time, you know this, but there are so many technical trends coming through now. Electrification, new fuels, digitalization, connectivity, everything that puts into place, and also automation and self-driving vehicles that are hitting the streets, and we hear reports about this. And you know everything this. And you also know that they affect each other. You can imagine a car, self-driving car, no need to steer it, that is also electrified with a very low price per kilometer to ride. Why shouldn't we ride more? Well, that will cause some troubles on the streets, because that will lead to more vehicles on the streets. So even if we can resolve the fuel or the emission problem with electrification, there will be other drawbacks. And a society or a city or a country with, say, double the number of vehicles on the streets, that wasn't probably not what we expected. So there are so many forces, they are interacting, and it's not sufficient to explore them one at a time. But we need to explore them together. But they all bring so many opportunities. But at the same time, as I said, we have the climate to think about. And you're also aware of this. And we hear reports that we are working in the right direction. Things are going in the right direction. But the latest assessment of the transport political goals in Sweden, we have quite high goals in Sweden to reduce fossil fuels, fossil emissions with 70% by 2030 and be fossil fuel free by 2050. It's going too slow. It's going in the right direction, but it's going too slow. The CO2 levels in the atmosphere is higher than they have been in several hundred years. And when they had this level the last time, it was like 3 or 4 degrees warmer on the average on the globe. So we have things to work with here. At the same time, Stockholm, I was into this about the space. The congestion in Stockholm, which is a quite small city, as an example, the congestion makes it travel times 61% longer, even in a small city as Stockholm. So even if we resolve the climate challenges, we have some other things to work with. And I know that you are all aware of this, but it's always good to repeat to yourself that yes, it's important, and it's important that we keep on working. We work with transportation here, and the transportation system is complex. This is only a small part of it, because it's no rail here, it's no aeroplanes, it's no metros, but only part of it. But still, it gives a picture, or the transportation system is complex. We know that to change to a sustainable transportation system, we need to put the user in the center, because things will not happen. I'm an engineer. I love technology. I love those stuff. But I've seen so many times, both in my work life, but also as a private person, cool technological stuff that doesn't hit, because the users didn't want it by some reason. So we need to put the user in the center. But I would say that is not enough. It's not enough with the user. I would share with you an example of a small project that we did a year ago about users. We invited 541 users working at the same company south from Stockholm, around 30 kilometers south from Stockholm. Everyone living in the same area, also south from Stockholm, some 25 kilometers from their workplace. We invited them to join ride sharing for work commuting. Good opportunities here, living in the same place, working in the same place, traveling to and from work every day. We invited them to use this ride sharing app. Among those 541, it was 8 persons that really tried the ride-sharing app. 8 persons. That's quite. It's, I don't know, 1.5% or something like that. Out of those 8 that downloaded the app, it was 3 that actually tried to offer the rides, tried to use the app. And it was 1 person that really did do ride sharing together. And that was the one doing the experiment. Okay, this wasn't... you're laughing, we weren't laughing. But after a while we started to laugh, because we thought, this is really interesting example. And we started to dig in, okay, why didn't they do this? We asked them how, and among those 540, it was 150 at least that took their time to answer quite a thorough survey. So they had some engagement in this anyway. And out of them 150, we asked, how open are you to ride sharing? Yeah, we are. I'm quite open. Normally, not. They don't say it's a bad idea. It's quite a good idea to be driver and passenger. Okay, so it's not not the concept as such. We asked them, how often do you reflect on your own commuting habits with respect to the environment? And you can go to yourself. How often do you? Quite often, not really every day, but like 5-6 times a day. Probably every day you go with your car to work. You reflect, this is not the best maybe. Okay, so they really, and then we asked them, do you do other things for the environment? Yes, we do. They were vegetarians. They bought eco food. They did a lot of other things. So they had some idea about living in an environmentally friendly way is important. Okay, so 10,000 kroner question. The main problem with ride sharing, it's a little bit tinier, but the main problem with ride sharing, the blue one here, blue bar, is loss of flexibility. The feeling of loss of flexibility, that was, I don't care about them. And we interviewed people and they said, yes, ride sharing is a super good idea. It's a really good idea, and I do care about the environment. And ride sharing is a good idea, except for me, because I need my flexibility. And out of 18 that we interviewed, 17 said so, explicitly. And I mean, they are clever people. They are working on a high-tech company. They want to do something, but the need for flexibility is much more important. Really, the top. Having to rely on others is a red one here, which is also high, which is in the same direction. The flexibility, rely on others. So yes, the user, we need to make service work and sustainable transportation work, we need to put the user in the center. But if we only put the user in the center, I will claim that we will not meet the sustainability goals. So we need, at the same time, to put the system level into the center and design a system that also works well for the society, for the climate. It takes a system perspective. And someone needs to pay for this also, or earn money from it. I have other examples from the railway industry in Sweden that you can ask me about later, because maybe I shouldn't tell them in public. But it's so true. It's so good ideas. But if no one earns money from it, it will not happen anyway. And it doesn't, earning money here, it's not about that it's not possible to earn money, but it can also be how the business models is set up, how the financing models is set up, how the chain of business is set up, that is cut in such a way so that no one gains from it. Or that, I mean, in one example that we had, delivering goods, you are paid by hour. Then it's quite okay to be in congestion, because you earn money while sitting there, and everyone loses from it. But you still. But if you earn money by hour, I mean, it's no use of speeding up or finding solutions to not be in the congestion as long as you get paid for it. So earning money is also important here. So we need to put all those things in the center together. I will also talk about, so that was about the center. I will talk a little bit about self-driving vehicles. I can't let that be, because I've been working on that quite much. Self-driving vehicles. So you know, we see those numbers. If we had self-driving vehicles and also share them like in a taxi service, we can heavily reduce the number of vehicles on the streets. We have done some literature studies here. Around some 10% of the vehicles, 90% of the vehicles just go away. That's good. I mean, it is good. Except that the vehicles that are there will drive more, a lot more. If we share the vehicles also, we can reduce, so go together and give this taxi fleet about the same the same, what do you say, service level as public transport. You have to wait some 10 minutes for your vehicle and then you have to take a long route. Then we can also reduce the kilometers driven. But those numbers are true in a city where there is only one supplier and everyone has to use that supplier. No private cars. Everyone has to go with the same supplier. And if you look outside, you're thinking, that sounds a little bit like Sovietish. Really. In the real world, there will be competition, which changes this and makes it much more complex. We have also seen in our research that sharing is good, but sorry, this was in Sweden, but incentives are needed to make people share, because only the cost is not sufficient to make people share their vehicles. Altogether, this is really a complex system. This is a draft version, a simplification of how different factors affect, or vehicle automation affect different the transportation system. And it's so it's not going to be any details about this. Just see it as a complex system with a lot of feedback loops that we need to investigate more. I will skip this one, and that's why all those things together, that we need to put the user, the society, and the money making, everything into the center when we develop the technology and the transportation system, and that it is a complex system. That's why we need to work in an integrated way. Here at ITRL, we work with the sustainable transportation system, taking all those different perspectives into account in our projects. Not all perspectives in all projects, but all together we strive to let the different perspectives meet. And we do that by working both at the demonstrator level, both with doing things for real, as you will see in the presentations later today, but also on the system level, looking at that complex system picture. And we also have the simulation level, where we can learn from where we can take what we learn from the demonstrators and do simulations. Maybe not on the whole transportation system, because that's super complex, but at least on parts of it. So do things for real, but always have the system level into account. So I hope really, and I believe that we have put together a program with a lot of projects and conversations that will show you how we work with integrated transport research here at ITRL.
Thank you. So I would like to immediately just bring up the panel, because we're going to be discussing this a bit. I have some questions for you, but I would like to call you up. So can you please come up here and introduce yourselves? I think you will do it better than anyone else.
So we just waited for you. Yeah. Okay.
So
let's start.
Yes, you can begin.
Thanks. Okay, nice to meet you all. I'm Olof Johansson. I work at the Swedish Transport Administration, and I work as a program director for how we digitalize the transport system, and meaning with that how we change and adapt our planning process for the new techniques that we are seeing coming into. So kind of like that.
Okay,
and my name is Jenny Lindqvist. I work at Ericsson, and I'm currently responsible for our customer Telia company, who operates on quite a few markets, focusing on Nordics and Baltics. in my previous role, which is relevant as well, I was responsible from Ericsson's side for everything we did in the transport segment globally. So road, rail, public transport and airports. So I think this is a great sort of cutting edge now. We have Telia being early out, working with some industries. We're setting up, we'll talk a little bit about that, setting up a 5G pilot network here on KTH, and also having still one leg in the transport industry where we see a lot of this is really happening here now.
All right,
And Ulf Ceder, from Scania. In my Scania role, I'm responsible for research and innovation for an area which we call then future transport systems and solutions. And part of my time, like 20% or something, I'm also co-director in ITRL here together with Anna, Mikael and Håkan from Ericsson also here. So very interesting to be around here.
Okay, so we have gathered you here today to talk about this because it can seem a bit complicated. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the term integrated transport from before. Well, most of you, that's good. But do you have, like, I'm pretty sure you have quite different ideas about what it can be. So I want to know what you think of it. We've been hearing from you, but maybe we can start from here. What is integrated transport and what is research on it from your perspective?
Yeah. Okay. When I got the question, I was thinking about that. What is integrated transport for me? Because I'm not sure I had like a clear view for myself before. But for me, it's a lot about putting together the different planning processes in society. So today, I think a lot we're planning like the transport system for itself, and then we're planning like housing here and other real estate there. I think we should integrate those kind of perspectives as well. I think that's one thing about integrated transport system as well, and then also getting together the different, like we were talking about sustainability before, and at Trafikverket we have been working with getting accessibility in a sustainable way, and for us that's a part of doing like an integrated planning as well. We have to integrate the sustainability when we plan the accessibility. But our core business is accessibility. So we wouldn't be able to work with the sustainability if we hadn't accessibility, if that makes sense. So for me, that's like two quite important things when we talk about this. Okay. If I just start off there.
So like a broader perspective on it to make it work, or
definitely. Definitely. And also I think one part is also within the transport system, it's the multimodal perspective. We are from Trafikverket, or Swedish Transport Administration. We were Banverket, like the road authority and the railway authority. And one of the key issues for putting together the whole of the transport system was to be able to plan for it integrated. And I think we still have a long way to go before we're there. But still now, at least when we a couple of weeks ago, or last week, the government, they decided about the National Transport Infrastructure Plan. And that's 620 billion Swedish kronor. And that's all of this transport system within it. And I think you can see a lot more now today than just 4 years ago that it's more integrated. So we're getting there slowly, I would say.
Okay. And Jenny, from an Ericsson perspective?
Same question, yeah. Well, we talk about, I think a very good point in the beginning, Anna. We talk also about future of transport being, it's connected, it's automated, and it's electrified, right? So that's super nice. So I would just sit in my car every day. I would never use my bike, because you can sit there, you can work, you can make phone calls, whatever. So the key here is really shared, which is the fourth one. And when we talk about this ride sharing also, we talk about not really true maybe mobility as a service, but it's more mobility on demand. So it's still using the same type of transport, but you share it. So the true integrated transport is really when you share and you make a full system across all of the modes of transport. And I would like to make an analogy which is close to my heart, which is mobile telephony. So with mobile telephony, you buy one subscription, right, from your operator. And then you can use the same subscription. I live here in Stockholm, but I can go to Gothenburg and I can use the same phone, the same subscription. And I can even go to, US and use the same subscription. that's not the way we have it at the moment in transport. So you have one SL card for the public transportation, I have my key to my car, I have my Uber subscription, you know, it's really siloed. And I think that's a good analogy to think about the end game we would like to go, where we have one system, and I think that's key in this flexibility side. It must be a complete ease of use and a complete seamless integration between the different modes of transport.
But so for Scania, for example, it's more clear because it's transport. But Ericsson, what would be the part that you would? What do you think is Ericsson's role?
Yeah.
You know?
So one of the key things is really connectivity that we talked about. If we don't have anything connected, we will never be able to integrate them. I mean, we'll just have these isolated vehicles driving around, no connectivity. And that's also layers of that. We see Volvo cars, for example, being very early out with connecting the cars, and they can talk to one another. The next step is, of course, we have full connectivity. It must be real time. It must be very, very low latency in order to enable, for example, automated driving. You don't want a sort of a delay of 2 seconds when you're going to hit someone, but it needs to be really real time. So we must make sure we have the latest and greatest and the best speeds. And I mean, KTH is key in that, looking at the 5G side. So that's one piece, the pure connectivity, that must be best of breed. And the second one is also when it comes to these payment systems. That's another thing we provide. For example, in Holland, now you need to stop me because I can talk about this. That's already in place. So there is one united payment systems for tram, for bus, for metro. I mean, that we should have in Sweden as well. And I think that's one key as well, the IT systems behind that must enable this.
Okay, and for Scania then?
Yeah,
what is it?
For Scania. I think I agree on what's already said. I think it's interesting what you say with looking on from Ericsson or cell phone perspective. I think from another perspective here is maybe the banks. If you compare the bank system, you can use your MasterCard today or whatever, wherever in the world, make payments. It's easy, it's transparent. But if you take the opposite, to go with a rail from Sweden down to Europe, it's impossible. It's impossible to buy a ticket. Everything is impossible. But then, of course, the triggers for all of having these discussions from our side is also, of course, in the basic is, of course, the driver is the kind of inefficient transport system and logistics system we have today. And also the key drivers, of course, with digitalization, automation, and electrification. And talking about digitalization, I learned that you can call it different things, but I call it a kind of system of systems, where you, as from Scania perspective, of course, we always create value for our customers. That's our key thing. But if you want to deliver value on a higher level, bringing the societal value for the city, for sustainability, then you must cooperate. You need to cooperate with other partners, open up yourself or your own data or whatever to others, and that's really challenging, and that's a part of the integrated perspective, I think. So really, what's driving this is probably digitalization. Looking on vehicles, for instance, I mean, it's changing. I mean, the vehicle have been an own system, but now it's being more and more integrated with digitalization, with automation, and with electrification. More and more integrated into the digital system or the energy systems or whatever. So it will be a kind of integrated system in the end.
And speaking of electrification and such, and sustainability, why? I promised I wouldn't put anyone on the spot here, but I would really like you to at least share something on why should we do this? Why not just make all the cars electric and be rid of emissions and let people sit in congestion? Why should we do this? Why should we make it more effective? Does anyone have an answer top of mind?
I mean, I think there's three main problems with the transport system at the moment, and one is sustainability. So yes, we will have electrified cars that will solve that one. The second one is safety, and when everything is automated, and that will drive down the number of accidents we have. But the third one is efficiency. So we have a huge GDP loss in each and every country at the moment, and that will just grow and grow. So I think there's really monetary benefits of making sure we don't have all of these congestions. And probably from the investment side also the physical infrastructure.
But I also think that it's like if we should have electrified all of the transport system, we couldn't right now. It's so we have to use different kinds of methods. So I was talking to our goal director for sustainability, and he said, yeah, of course it would be nice, but we don't have that capacity yet. So that's, for example, why we look also at those electrical roads, because then we can charge the vehicles while they are driving, and on really where there's many cars driving in high capacity, then we can use it in a good way. So I think we have to use different kind of methods to be able to get a sustainable transport system.
Do you have something?
I agree with both of you, and Jenny also bring up this financial perspective. It's not both for goods and for people. It's good for people to meet, and if we sit in congestion in cars, we don't meet. So and same for goods. It has to come through. But also, if we electrified everything with sustainable, producing energy is also, it takes place. There need to be solar panels, that takes place. It needs to be windmills, that takes place. So there are no free lunch. Sorry.
But so or do you?
You have from our side, of course. I mean, electric vehicles or electrified transportation, it is much more energy efficient, and it brings a lot of other values, of course, especially for cities, like reduced noise emissions and so on. So that's very important. But on the other hand, you can't only electrify and think that will solve all problems. It won't solve congestion problems. And I don't think automation itself will solve congestion problems either. As Anna showed earlier, it could get worse. And that's kind of the research that we need to understand also what will happen. So, I mean, we have an excellent shared system today with the public transport. And we shouldn't forget about the public transport systems. To have an efficient transport, we need, it's a lot of people out there who need to go around with mobility. So we need an efficient system. So I don't think it's enough with smaller vehicles going around, sometimes empty from today, at least having one person on board. So yeah, that's something challenging, I think.
If you wanted to add something.
Yeah, definitely, because I think we should definitely look at the whole transport system and then look where is the right transport for the right needs at that point. So for some parts, the railway is perfect, and on some parts we need the road system. And so I think sometimes today we have to be better at seeing at the exact points where it's the best, what's the best option right there. And that for me is about this integrated transport system. That is really a vital part of it.
But that is true today, right? The different modes of transport are better for certain situations. I think at least. So why isn't it happening by itself? Why is it so slow to move? Why do people cling to the old system? What do you think?
It's interesting study you showed there. I mean, I guess we're quite comfortable in where we are, and also there are barriers of making this change happen. It's not
like what? Like what barriers do we have? We have development of.
Yeah, one thing that I mentioned before is that at the moment it's not possible for one player to do what we have in the Netherlands, to go in and buy and resell tickets for public transportation, for example. We have sort of policies and regulations stopping that. So that means that we can't have one player offering a fully integrated mobility system, including all modes of transportation. It's very siloed at the moment. So there are some obstacles along the way.
Okay.
That's one example.
But if I'm just thinking that if it's so good, maybe it would be easier for people to overcome these obstacles. But I see your point. But what needs to change now? What can we change now to make it happen more smoothly? One is bringing down those barriers. What else?
I mean, we need to. The challenge is that we need to do it together. There are so many players that need to do the same thing at the same, or take steps in the same direction at the same time. The business models are barriers for sure. Electrification, why hasn't that happened? Well, where should I charge my car? It's okay when I go from home to work, but if I want to go somewhere else, where should I charge it then? There are gas stations basically everywhere, and they are so available. So it's a lot about the infrastructure also, and it's a lot about trust in the services and getting used to use new things. Dare to step out of the comfort zone.
And who should do this then? Who should be responsible? All of you? All of us?
All of us.
Maybe. But like who do you think? We have transport, we have Ericsson, we have Trafikverket, we have research as well. Who should take the first step to?
I think that's an important question, because it's not about one player. I mean, it's a bit of a overused word maybe, but it's really about the ecosystems here. I mean, it's not one player doing it. It's not one mode of transport. It's really about building these types of innovative environments where people can, and different academia and both big industries and also smaller startups can come together and innovate. And like you said, it needs to be linked to whatever we see will make a difference on the system level. So it will definitely not be one player going saying, you know, I will change this, but it needs to be a joint effort, also from the political side, we should say, not the least.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I mean, it's you need to take some kind of risk here also. I mean, to win something. So you're talking about ecosystems, but to go into that and have trust, you of course you need to have trust on the other partners in that ecosystem. But to have this higher value, you need to have trust in that system, and you have to explore new business models, how to earn money. But you also need, of course, investments in like us, for instance, invested heavily in new technology, like automated trucks and buses, electrified buses, trucks, and so on. But you also, we need, from our side, we need more probably investments in infrastructure, not only in the road infrastructure, but also like in the digital infrastructure, in the energy infrastructure, to really make things happen. Otherwise, and sometimes it's you can't only say to the industry that have the solutions, because you need the infrastructure, you need the organization also. Probably it's a little bit, you have to organize a little bit differently. That's also what I believe.
I think we should, because like for example now we're discussing a lot what's the public role within this. And we have, because we're really used to the physical infrastructure. We know that that's our responsibility. That's easy for us. But what about the digital infrastructure? Who is responsible for that or not? So that's a really big question to solve. And I think that's one interesting part to look at. And the second one about the business models, I think, for example, we're talking a lot about mobility as a service, and we're having a hard time finding the right business models within that. But I think we have to look at it one step ahead, because I think the business model isn't in the mobility as a service in itself, but it's in the connecting services to the mobility as a service. So for example, if we're looking at the big players today that has the digital platforms, for example Alibaba and Amazon and Google, they are, I think they actually are going into the mobility as a service sector, but they're doing it so if they can, for example, they have their AI assistants and they have their payment solutions, and they also have like the mobility solutions. So then they know how we travel, how we can consume, and also why we're doing things. And then put together also like that they are developing the self-driving cars. Then they have like the base for that. So they can actually, in real time, doing advertisements to say, okay, maybe you should go to, we predict there's queues. Maybe you can go buy a shop instead. Your connected refrigerator says that you lack of cheese and milk. Or no, instead, we can drive it home to you and you can go work out or go to the pharmacy or go get a haircut, because we can see that it was a long time ago because of our consuming habits. Mm-hmm. So I think, and there, that's, how do you call it? They if you look at their digital advertisement today, and if you look at the real-time advertisement, that's a lot bigger than it is today. So it's like a huge amount of money that can be made there. And then they can actually make us doing choices in real time, and it will be quite kind of easy for us as consumers. It's just okay. It's nice. It will be a quite easy life, but we will be overwatched in some way.
Because it sounds now like you're talking about actually an integrated lifestyle more than transportation only. So, but and I would like to get back to that in a moment. But first, is there anyone who has a question? One at the back.
Yeah, I have a question for the panel here. Do you actually think it's too cheap to ride around with your own car?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can imagine it would be much more convenient to take your own plane somewhere. Because it's just simply too expensive, which is probably a good thing. But I mean, we can also regulate this with costs and taxes.
So, is it too cheap?
I had the same reflection. Someone said something about why it doesn't happen. Oh, you said so. I mean, it's cheap. It's quite convenient, right? There's some queues, but not so much. So, yeah, I think incentives is the key thing. I'm not a big fan of it, though. But it's one tool, I guess, that can be used.
Yeah,
I can agree. It's quite hard to say, but it's, of course, if we would have higher tolls on the roads, I think we will get a more efficient road system, definitely. But then, where is the, how do you call it? What cost should it be to get rid of enough cars to make it more this rhythm more smooth? I don't know, but it's probably too cheap because it's so many using it. But still, the flexibility, as you were talking about before, we like that and we need that, and so I think it's quite easy, I would say, to commute anyways, but still people take the car.
Yeah, again, I guess it's easier if you want to do it more sustainably. That's to overcome your own barriers. But one more.
So I'm really happy to hear about your broader thought about accessibility and mobility. I wonder, you said something, who is responsible for this accessibility infrastructure? Is that you at
Trafikverket? It's a good question. It's we have the national roads, for example, and then the municipalities have those roads. So we have to do it together, of course. But of course, we have a big role in it.
But also
definitely.
for the step one in the four-step principle to reduce demand transport.
Yeah.
And also that infrastructure which Ericsson provides, the digital infrastructure and the...
we can see, the big challenge there is, I really like the four-step principle, where we first could think, could we do it in another way, and could we optimize it before we rebuild or build something new. So I think that's a really good, a good method. But then we also, when we're doing it in our planning processes together with all the different parties, then we can see the first two steps, optimizing and rethink. We can plan it, but it's often another part that's supposed in the end to do that. So that's our challenge actually. Yeah. But it's interesting, and I think we have a big role to play, and I think we should do it together with the municipalities actually.
Yeah, just to add, I mean, it must also be, I'm not a big fan of the regulation, so it must be market driven. I mean, that's where we really will see the change, not from a lot of governmental funding going into this. I mean, that can be one part, incentives, but it really must make business sense. So from Ericsson's point of view, like I said, we provide the digital infrastructure. Some will have to buy that, that's our customers. So Telia in the room, one customer, the mobile operators, and for them, they need to have a business model for how to make money on this. That's in sense how they will want to invest in it.
And if you...
I don't know. It's probably you can't compare it. But I've been to China now and then. We talk about China here, and okay, the things how they do it. Okay, we shouldn't do it the same. But anyway, being there for a week, like a couple of months ago, going around on the scouting trip, seeing the very fast speed in digitalization, automation, and so on. It's electrification. It's tremendous. They say it's 10 times faster than in Europe. And of course, I mean, somewhere the government, government in China is really pushing and putting money, and also from policy perspective. What I heard, for instance, they force all car companies to deliver data to a central data cloud, and that's managed by Alibaba. So, of course, they have a lot of data. They can do things quickly and so on. But I don't say we should copy it. But how do we get up the speed by doing it in our way? I think we have to get up the speed somehow, and because we are facing also the competition from countries like China, for instance.
And also to add on, like if we look at the figures with Alibaba, like China it's very big, and I saw, I think it was in 2016, they got like 70% of the data transactions of all the e-commerce, and they said like this is their like assumption, but they said like they were about to develop together with a vehicle manufacturer like a million electrical automated vehicles that will have their AI assistant in it, and by doing that they could reduce like the travel distance by 30%, and they could also reduce the number of vehicles with 10%. And if you add those numbers to 70% of the market, that's a lot. But then it's one player, so it's we have to think what does it mean for us. So we have to look at in the world and in the globalized world and see. And if they are coming, for example, Amazon or Alibaba is coming to Sweden, how will that affect us? Both like the enterprise and also like the way we travel.
For instance, I mentioned in Shenzhen bus, they have thousands of buses, and they had we visited them in South China, close to Hong Kong, and they had a plan. Already now they had almost all of their buses electrified, and within 2 years the whole system will be automated. 2 years from now, so it's like 4,000 or 5,000 buses, I think, in total. One of the largest bus operators in the world. So that's speed. And that's what we have. What we also will have to compete with, of course, here within a few years.
And I'm guessing we will have to do it with a tiny amount of that, tiny comparative amount of data.
We as an international company, I mean, we are a global company, and we are selling products all over the world. So we have to compete with the Chinese.
But we shouldn't underestimate Sweden also. I mean, we do have strong academia. We have a lot of, I mean, especially in transport, we do have a lot of big companies, big industries that contribute and are in the forefront already. And there's, I mean, high edge on the technology side. We're early out with 5G, for example, on the technology side. We do invest in the digital infrastructure. We need to invest more, but there are a number of prerequisites that are really in place for Sweden to be not first maybe, but at least on the leading side.
And I totally agree, but we shouldn't do it in the same way as China. And they are because they are looking at us, and they want to cooperate with us also. So, but what are the winning? What is our winning concept here in Sweden?
And I agree with Jenny. I think we have a really good position in Sweden to be able to be in the forefront. Actually, we have the big companies. We have like the willingness from the politicians right now, and we also, I think, we're quite adaptive as like inhabitants in Sweden as well to new techniques and technologies. So I think we have a really good position to do something really good.
Then let's do it quickly.
Maybe you heard about the Catapult program in the UK. It's benchmarking how are our data working. Is it working or not? And it's a program where they were finding out what's the situation now, what's the status, and they sent out questionnaires. to people about how is your transportation, your mobility needs. And they found out that, well, many people talk about pain spots, changing from bus to train and things like that. And they asked, the follow-up question was that if you agree on sharing your data so we can improve the service, how willing are you? And 70% answered, yes, I'm willing to share my data. So I'm just putting it out there because when we talk integrated transport needs, we're talking about users. User needs also.
And once again, really key for, I mean, Ericsson and the mobile operators, because who will enable that data and share it and open it up.
So, we have one last question.
I think the type of company that are going to steer this development is the companies that control the data. So the big companies producing cars and vehicles are delivering these to those who make the money. That's a problem for Europe because we don't have that kind of big companies here. It's China and the United States that have that company. So I see a problem here in the future.
Do we have a way to solve that?
I think it's a challenge. That was also why I mentioned Amazon and Alibaba and Google, because those are the companies that today, as I see it, they are having an advantage of many of the other companies. And I think they can actually, if we don't, I don't know if we should do something from the societal way, like putting in, I have no idea, like saying, okay, we should have a system like this or that, and I don't know. It's really hard, but it's of course the businesses in itself should drive the I call it the way the society will work. But
we soon have to move on in the program, but I would like to just ask you one final question, and that is, we have a report from here. It's about 1 year old, 1.5, about 4 potential scenarios with self-driving vehicles and their impact on society. And it answered 4 different versions of the future. I'm sure you all have one vision for the future each, but what is it going to look like, and how far away is it, the future of transport? Who would like to start?
That's a very appropriate question. When it comes to integrated mobility or the
what do you think will happen? Do you think we will have an integrated transport system, or do you think we will find something else on the way?
You start, sure.
Okay, should I start? I think it will adapt like in how do you call it, like sequentially, or how do you say? Okay. So I think if we sometimes we talk about the future of the society and the future of the transport system, how will it look, and we don't know about it. But I think we know how it will look, or we know how it could look. If we want something to happen, I think we could know quite good how it will look in 2040. But it's the politicians that has to make that decision. But so we know about the techniques behind self-driving vehicles, and we know about how we can share data more. I would just say, when do we want it to happen? Then we will be there, I would say. But then, of course, having a totally automated system, that's a long way ahead. But having it from like node to node in freight or maybe like public transport, I think we'll definitely have to see that like quite soon, actually. And it will also be more electrified, I would definitely think, and of course more integrated. But that's my perspective.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Of course, it's a very tricky question. First of all, I think what we definitely need is a sustainable transport system, because that's key for our survival. And for that, I think also we need an integrated transport system to achieve that. I hope we can achieve. But I think in the basics for it is, again, I think the basics is it's not technology, of course. It's trust. I think it's trust. And sometimes, of course, you can get a little bit negative with the development in the world, because it's not going in the right direction. Talking about that we keep trust on each other, trust between countries, and so on. But definitely we have to have this vision and go in that direction. Yeah.
Yes.
Some things that have not been mentioned. And we talked in the beginning, connected transport, that will absolutely happen. It's happening already. Automated transport, that will happen. I mean, we said 2020 in Sweden, now it's more 2021, I think. We have some examples, but a little bit more large scale. Electrified also already happening. That's in Sweden largely driven also by the incentives set up by the government. And then shared. I think that's the most tricky one, and the one that might take the longest time, because that also means that we will have some companies that will no longer be able to operate and make money the way they do today, which is the car manufacturers also. So that's a huge shift for them, and they've been talking about it for a very long time, that we will no longer I remember GM when the global intelligent transport system congregate was in Detroit. The head of GM was there saying, we will no longer sell cars, we will sell service. But they don't yet, right? They still make a lot of money on the way they sell cars. So they need to shift and find out how to make money in a different way, to find new business models. So that's one big shift, and I think that's one of the real tricky ones, is really the shared piece. And then we haven't talked so much about logistics. I think that's also a real benefit for society. And that, I think, maybe we can find easier wins in the shared domain when it comes to logistics. One of the main problems today in cities is we have very low loads in the vehicles driving around. And I would say maybe even more so today when we have a lot of the e-commerce really driving around. I mean, I only buy my food from Maten, and sometimes we have 5 exact same cars in my neighborhood at the same time. It's not. So there are real benefits of really driving that shared concept also in the logistics sides. And I think we talk about what we see here now, but we also had one example, interesting domain is also looking at the drones, of course, the airspace that we talked about. And we had an interesting demo together with the Telia drone, together with the Karolinska Institutet, that we showed to the Nordic ministers when they were here in Sweden last week. And that's about how you can fly out. That example, it was heart, defibrillators to save lives. But I mean, that will also be valid, I think. What are the opportunities we see coming in transport in the future? It's not only looking at the modes of transport we have now, but all of these 4 drivers will enable new way of looking at transportations, and maybe new modes of transportations as well that will be cost efficient.
Do you have something to add, Anna?
I agree with all of you. I think, and I hope, and we need to create a sustainable transportation system, fossil fuel free, extremely fast, and we will do that. We have the technology for it. I agree with the shared, both for logistics and for persons, is a challenge to make it efficient. But it's also, I'm a researcher, so I say how will the future look like? It depends. It's very nice to have those 4 scenarios to say it depends. But I think it's not only one solution that we should find. There are several different solutions, and we should combine them. And depending on which role the future takes, it will be different solutions that are most effective. So we need to be prepared and explore different solutions also.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We will move on in the program. Next up is a bit of Fika. And after that we will hear from...
Shared Fika, right?
Shared Fika.